Obamacare is terrible. It's bad health care at far too high a price. We should fix that. We should fix it. And we can fix it with the Democrats. All they have to do is let the country open and we'll fix it. They have to let the country open and I'll sit down with the Democrats and we'll fix it. But they have to let the country. And you know what they have to do? All they have to do is raise 5 hands. We don't need all of them.
But so you're saying your plan is to tell the Democrats to vote to end the shutdown.
Correct. Very simple.
And that you will put forward a health care plan?
No, we will work on fixing the bad health care that we have right now. We have terrible health care at too expensive for the people, not for the government, for the people.
But, Mr. President, with all due respect, you've been talking about fixing the health care insurance plan since 2015.
And you can't do it because of the Democrats.
But since 2015, you've said you'd fix it.
I've been talking about it for a long time. We almost did it. We were 1 vote short. We would have had great health care.
That was in 2017, when Senate Republicans failed by 1 vote to partially repeal Obamacare.
Boy. So we got to talk about a game-changing proposal from President Trump that is currently fighting the Democrats and trying to force them to open up the government, okay? The Democrats have opened up the government, and they're holding the American people hostage because they want to, quote-unquote, save healthcare, right? AKA they want to save Obamacare, which is a failing healthcare system. It is a healthcare system designed to socialize the costs and to privatize profits. What does that mean? That means that taxpayers are essentially socializing the cost of healthcare for people in this country, and big insurance companies, big hospitals, big doctors, big pharma, they reap all the benefits. Again, while having the costs socialized.
What is your response to Chuck Schumer's proposal here to keep those ACA benefits going for another year, bipartisan committee to work on those, and reopen the government with the clean CR?
God, please give me patience, because if you give me strength, I'm going to need bail money. What Senator Schumer is suggesting is that we do the dumbest thing possible that won't work. Stupid should hurt more. Senator Schumer says we should just extend the status quo for a year. What does that mean? That means that we would have to take $35 billion of taxpayer money and give it directly to the health insurance companies without any commitment of lowering premiums. How is that going to reduce health care costs? How's that going to reduce premiums? The health care companies are going to take $35 billion from the taxpayers and put it into their pockets. I mean, duh. I don't know what Senator Schumer is thinking. Earth to Chuck. Earth to Chuck. Am I going to vote for this? The short answer is no. The long answer is hell no. I think we're just going to have to get used to the fact that we've been in a shutdown. We're going to be in a shutdown for a while. I voted 14 times to lift the shutdown. The Democrats and Senator Rand Paul have voted 14 times to keep the government shut down.
That is the current system that we have, which is why you have major health insurance companies. Their stock performance after Obamacare shot up tremendously, right? You've done very well if you invested in big insurance after Obamacare, because the system was designed to subsidize corporate America, okay? This is crony socialism, okay? I think we need to stop using the term crony capitalism, because Obamacare is not capitalism. It is socialism. It is crony socialism. That's what it is. And President Trump has just put out a proposal that I want to talk about. Probably one of the best proposals that I've seen from Republicans when it comes to this issue of healthcare, right? And it is one of these proposals where I'm like, you know what? This might actually work without destroying the possibility of Republicans winning in the midterms. In fact, this might actually help Republicans win in the midterms, because this would be much more popular than the current option that Republicans are faced with from the Democrats, to vote to give healthcare insurance companies billions of dollars, right, of taxpayer money for them to not lower premiums, right, or to vote not to give them the money, and people have to pay the full cost of the premiums that are going to continue to go up because the healthcare system is bloated, right? There's too much money going to these insurance companies who have no incentive whatsoever to lower costs, right? They are sucking money out of the pockets of taxpayers, and enough is enough. President Trump is saying that he is recommending to Senate Republicans that the hundreds of billions of dollars currently being sent to money-sucking insurance companies in order to save the bad health care provided by Obamacare be sent directly to the people so that they can purchase their own much better health care and have money left over. In other words, take from the big bad insurance companies, give it to the people, and terminate per dollar spent the worst healthcare anywhere in the world. Obamacare, unrelated, we must still repeal the filibuster. Now, I absolutely love this proposal, and I'm going to tell you guys why, right? I'm going to address all of the people who are skeptical about this, that are saying, no, we shouldn't do this. I'm going to tell you why it's actually way better than basically anything else that Republicans can do at this point. And the key is not just to gut Obamacare via direct payments to people, right? Which is not spending any new money. It's the same amount of money that we're going to spend anyways. So it's not new taxes, okay? It's the same amount of money we're going to spend anyways. It's just being directed to the American people instead of the insurance companies. But Republicans also need to follow up with supply side reforms in order to open up competition and to dismantle the monopolies that are currently in the system. That is how this works long term in order to lower costs. And I'm going to explain to you guys exactly what I'm talking about and what I recommend that Republicans do in order to actually get a real fix, while at the same time helping the Republicans actually win in the midterms. Because the problem with just outright repealing Obamacare, okay, which is what I want. I support that. Don't get me wrong. I support just flat out getting rid of it, right? I mean, I'm not eligible for it. I don't benefit from it at all. So to me, if they get rid of it overnight, it ain't going to hurt me, right? I don't care. But there's a lot of people who do depend on the system. And there's a lot of people, if you just outright get rid of it without a cushion, without a soft landing, that's going to destroy the Republicans. It's not going to help Republicans in midterms. Democrats going to campaign on it, and it will work. Okay, they will successfully campaign on it. They're already doing that. That is what happened just a couple days ago with the off-season elections. The reason why Democrats got so much turnout is because there was the perfect storm of the shutdown, people's food stamps going away, federal workers not being paid, and also Democrats campaigning on this healthcare thing, right? They have a monopoly on the healthcare conversation in this country, and Republicans have to shift the narrative. And this proposal right here, I think, is the best way to do it. It's the best shot that Republicans have, to be honest with you, okay? If this doesn't work, I don't know what they can do. But what President Trump put out here, I think is genius. It's absolutely genius. I'm going to tell you guys why, right? The reason why you know is because liberals are already panicking. They're already panicking, coming up with all these reasons why we should not gut a healthcare system that is a scam on the American people and benefits insurance companies, right? They're essentially defending big insurance. That's what Brian Krassenstein is doing in his long post. He is saying it is a bad idea to call insurers money sucking, right? It's a bad idea, according to Democrat propagandists who are freaking out about this, to allow the American people to buy their own health care, right? To give the American people a choice. That's a terrible idea, according to liberals, right? They don't want you to have a choice. They believe they should be the ones that are allowed to determine what type of healthcare you can and can't get, right? This is what they believe, right? They don't want you to have a choice. They don't want you to have a choice. So, again, I'm going to tell you why these people are upset. They're upset because this, one, is a much better proposal than what we currently have. Is also a much better proposal than so-called Medicare for all. It's not Medicare for all. It is simply just shifting money that already is being spent, okay? It's already been spent. It's not new tax money. It's not anything like that. It's just shifting the money from insurance companies to consumers. Why is this good in the long term for bringing down costs? The reason why this is good is because now the insurance companies, instead of getting a guaranteed subsidy, which does not incentivize them to lower costs at all. In fact, it actually incentivizes them to hide the true cost because, again, the costs are being subsidized by taxpayers, okay? So there's no real accountability for premiums continue to rise and rise and rise because the demand is being subsidized, right? You've subsidized demand. Now, what President Trump is proposing flips the system, right? There's two sides of this. There's demand side, there's supply side. I'm going to deal with the demand side first, and then I'm going to get into the supply side of this stuff, which is what Republicans need to follow up with in order to actually make this really, really, really work. So when it comes to the demand side, what happens is that, again, the Obamacare subsidies right now are being paid directly to insurance companies. So we're talking about 60, 70, 80 billion dollars a year. There's about 14 million people right now on Obamacare subsidies. That's about $300 to $400 per month per person, right? That's currently on the subsidy. So instead of giving that to the insurance companies, if you direct that money into health wallets, right? So essentially you pay cash that doesn't go to insurance companies, but goes to the people, and the people can use it for any insurance plan, not just the Obamacare ones, but any insurance plan, direct primary care memberships, cash paid clinics and telehealth, prescriptions, and basic medical services. These unused funds should be allowed to accumulate, or you can convert them into HSAs, which is basically a tax-free healthcare retirement savings. So the funds can only be used for healthcare related purposes. But if people have leftover funds, or if they choose not to buy insurance, which should be a choice, right? People should have the choice not to do that. Or if they want to get, bare bones, emergency medical insurance only, then they can use the unused funds to basically save for retirement. Because when it comes to HSAs, it is tax-free to put money into it. It's tax-free to take money out of it if you're using the funds for healthcare related purposes. But after the age of 65, you can withdraw it and it's taxed as income, like a regular traditional IRA. Okay. So the point of this is that this actually breaks the monopoly that the insurers currently have when it comes to Obamacare, because now they have to compete for consumers, right? Instead of being handed subsidies, it puts downward pressure on prices because you're giving consumers more options in regards to what they can use the money for. And because of that, insurance companies are going to have to compete. They're going to have to bring down prices in order to get the money, right? If they want the money, they're going to have to compete for it, which means they're going to have to bring down price. They're going to have to provide better service. They're going to have to provide better plans. Again, if you're young and you don't need expensive, fancy health insurance, again, because you're young, you don't really need to see a doctor that much. Yeah, you can get an emergency plan, take the rest of the money, save for retirement. And if something happens to happen, if you happen to need to go to the doctor, the money is there to cover the cost. Now, when it comes to supply side, now this is, again, very, very, very important, because this only works if Republicans actually follow up with supply side reform, okay, which is something that they're actually going to need to pass. And they can't really use reconciliation for a lot of it because it's not eligible for reconciliation. So they're going to actually need to pass this, right? They're going to actually need to campaign on this. They're going to need to actually put some real political effort behind it. But if you do both of these things at the same time, this is how you lower costs for real permanently. So if they follow up with supply side reforms, like expanded residency slots. So I explained to you guys in a prior video how Big Doctor has rigged the system when it comes to the supply of doctors, because they have lobbied the politicians to cap funding for residency slots, which artificially limits the supply of new doctors every year. And the reason why they do this is because it keeps their salaries high, right? It ensures that there won't be an oversupply of doctors, right? Crazy thing. Oversupply of doctors, which would drive down their salaries, okay? So expand residency slots, allow more clinics in telehealth, open competition across state lines, crack down on hospital monopolies, right? Like, for example, there are regulations within Obamacare that have banned doctors from opening up new hospitals in order to compete with big hospital chains. Again, I talked about this in a prior video. I don't want to make this too complicated. Just understand that, again, because of lobbyists, because of big corporate interests, you have regulations within Obamacare that are driving up costs, okay? If Republicans can grow a spine, if they grow a backbone, and to actually stand up to these big corporate interests, we can do this, right? Like, we can actually do this, and it just requires opening up the free market. Now, when it comes to the issue of cost shifting, because of the fact that you have these hospitals that are required to, for example, take care of illegal immigrants, right? So they're required to treat illegal immigrants, and they get reimbursed by Medicaid, okay, for doing this, okay, if they want to receive Medicaid and Medicare funds. In order to fix that problem, we can still treat the illegals, right? We can be humane. If an illegal goes to the hospital for emergency care, we can treat them. It's just that these hospitals are going to be required by law to detain them, right? They have to check for citizenship. And if they're here illegally, then they have to be detained. And if the hospital says they don't want to do that, then that's fine. They don't have to. But they're going to have to bear the cost, right? They have to bear the cost. You're not going to be subsidized for treating illegal immigrants, but refusing to detain them so that they can eventually be deported, because they should be deported if they're here illegally, right? That is what needs to be done. So I just want people to understand, we can do this in a humane way. We can still require that people with pre-existing conditions get insurance, right? You can't deny people with pre-existing conditions and stuff, but we can still do all that. That's not the real problem. The real problem is that we don't have a free market system, and that we are subsidizing the cost while privatizing profits. And you have these insurance companies getting rich because of it, instead of making them compete, which is the way the system is supposed to work, right? We can still give people the help they need, right? Again, without incentivizing this corrupt socialist system that we currently have right now. We can do it. And what that requires simply is changing the demand and supply structure that we currently have in the system. That is what you're going to have to do. And again, I don't want to make it too complicated because there's so much stuff I can go over. I just want to make it very simple for people to understand, okay? This right here, in my opinion, I think is the best way forward politically for Republicans on this issue of healthcare. They can actually say that we have a plan. The plan is not going to hurt. In fact, I think people would actually prefer to see the cash payments directly, right, in their health savings account or whatever. They would actually prefer to see that than for the money to go to the insurance companies directly. And you can let Democrats try to filibuster it, right? Let Democrats explain why is it that we should send billions of dollars to healthcare companies instead of giving consumers a choice, right? Let Democrats explain that. Let Democrats explain why is it that they're stopping the American people from having greater choice when it comes to healthcare, right? Freeing up their ability to decide how they want to take care of themselves. I think that this is a political winner. But again, the key here is that Republicans are going to have to follow up with supply side reforms. That's the only way that it works in the long run, is that you also have to fix the supply side of it as well too, because the Obamacare regulations have created big monopolies that are causing prices to continue to go up, okay? Republicans need to dig into their Teddy Roosevelt bag, right? They need to maybe go back in time, right? To a time in which Republicans actually, did fight against this type of stuff. And it was very popular with the American people. Again, the time of Teddy Roosevelt. And some of the things that he did when you talk about trust busting, breaking up these monopolies, I think the healthcare monopoly is one of the biggest monopolies in this country that needs to be broken up, and we need to give consumers more of a choice. And I think what President Trump proposed here is a good step towards it. It's just that Republicans need to make sure, again, from the supply side perspective, that they're following up. So, again, politically speaking, I think that this is great. I think that Republicans should run with this. They should campaign on this. They should make Democrats explain why it is a good idea to give money to insurance companies instead of the American people, and just frame it as a direct check. We're giving you a direct check. Just frame it, right? Just say, we're giving you a direct check to have choice in healthcare, right? You choose what you want. You choose how you take care of yourself. We trust the American people to make a choice. We're giving you a choice. Obamacare doesn't give you a choice. It just gives money to big interests, big corporations. Democrats are protecting big companies, right? They're protecting big insurance companies. All of these leftists ran around essentially celebrating the assassination of a healthcare CEO because there's a lot of hate in this country for big insurance companies. And Democrats are the best friends of these insurance companies. And a lot of Republicans too. Let's keep it 100. But my point is that you can reframe this conversation in a way that the American people can clearly see who's in bed with the insurance companies that they hate and who's on the side of the American people and giving them a choice. And I think that this proposal does all of that. And that's why I think that this is a great idea. This is a genius proposal. And I think that Republicans need to stick with this. I think that this is gold. This is exactly what we need. We have to have something on the healthcare conversation. We can no longer allow Democrats to have a monopoly on this conversation, because if we do, then essentially we're just going to move towards Medicare for all, and that's not what I want, right? That is the last thing that I want. I do not want a single-payer healthcare system, but that's what we're moving towards if we continue to allow Democrats to, again, have a monopoly on this issue. Obamacare is broken, and the longer that we continue to subsidize a broken system the way that we're doing it right now, that means that the American people are just going to say, screw it. We just want the government to take over the whole healthcare system. And that's not what you want, right? That is not what you want at all. That's not what we want. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.